This 82-year-old's obituary is so savage that it left her son speechless. A few months after Cornelia June Rogers Miller died, her obituary appeared in a North Carolina newspaper. And while that by itself was nothing really out of the ordinary, this particular tribute to the deceased ended up making waves for its brutal honesty. Yes, the notice didn't hold back in its scathing takedown of the 82-year-old, and it seriously upset the late great-grandmother's son as a result. From the basic facts of Miller's life, though, you may never realize what she had apparently done to warrant such harsh treatment. June entered the world in the Mississippi city of Morton in 1934, although she later settled in Gainesville, Florida. Then, after that, she relocated to High Springs, Florida, alongside her husband, Robert, and their son, Robert Jr., where it appears she lived out the rest of her days. Apart from June's husband and son, her immediate family also consisted of daughters Suzanne Amos and Marilyn Miller. Through them and Robert Jr., June would gain a total of 9 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren, all born within her lifetime. At the time of her demise, another 2 great-grandkids were also on the way. But although June had chosen Florida as her home, it appears that she and her husband had had a long-running love affair with North Carolina. At the very least, the couple had a summer home in the town of Murphy in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and they are said to have visited the location whenever they could. In 2017, Robert Jr. told News Channel 9, "Once my father retired, would go up to Murphy pretty much whenever they liked to. They would go for a weekend in the winter." When June and Robert Sr. sold their beloved retreat in 2016, though, those times came to an end. By that point, the 6.5-hour drive between High Springs and Murphy was proving too arduous for June and Robert Sr. The health of each was, it seems, not as good as it had once been. Then, finally, the couple moved together into an assisted living facility, where they shared a room. But the couple were separated for good in February 2017 when June sadly lost her life. Along with her extended family, the wife and mother left behind her husband, who was 4 years her senior. And explaining the cause of his mother's passing away, Robert Jr. told News Channel 9, "She was 82 years old, I believe, so she had a variety of complications." In most cases, an obituary is written by someone who was close to the person who has died. The notice is then typically published by a local newspaper in order to inform the wider community of the individual in question's passing. And, frequently, such a tribute aims to give others a flavor of the deceased's life, detailing what was important to them. Furthermore, since an obituary can serve as a lasting written eulogy, a family may feel it important to give some sense of their loved one's nature in their tribute. Relatives may also deem it necessary to express their sorrow at the demise or even give thanks for the time that they had together with the deceased. As you may know, then, an obit tends to focus on the positive aspects of a person's life, maybe even giving a glowing synopsis of their time on Earth. And with that in mind, June's obituary rather stood out from the crowd when it appeared in the Cherokee Scout. That wasn't down to the tribute being exceptionally kind, mind you, in fact, it was quite the opposite. Indeed, during his conversation with News Channel 9, Robert Jr. expressed his dismay with the obit, saying, "The whole thing is just sad." But while it's not publicly known who was responsible for the terrible tribute, Robert Jr. believed that the obituary had come from someone close to his mother and probably either Suzanne or Marilyn. As June's devastated son told News Channel 9, "It's unbelievable that my sisters would write this. It's really sad that they don't have anything better to do." However, despite Robert Jr.'s finger-pointing, the mystery surrounding the obituary only deepened when one of his sisters denied that they were responsible for its publication. The obit in question begins ordinarily enough, citing June's full name and her birthday as well as her hometown. It also gives the day on which she had died as February 23, 2017. And while that date may have been accurate, it nevertheless hinted at something rather unusual. You see, it appeared that June had passed away a whole 4 months before the notice had appeared in the Cherokee Scout. Then, after the seemingly innocuous intro, June's obituary continued in a familiar way, detailing the circumstances surrounding her going away and stating that she had passed after a long battle with drug addiction and depression. After that, there was some information on the places where June had lived, alongside a mention of Murphy, where, the obit said, the deceased had spent summers. You see, while the notice acknowledged that June had helped produce a family, it also suggested that she hadn't found joy in those relatives. One brutal extract reads, "We are thankful for the life that was issued forth because of June. We wish she could have appreciated the abundance of life she was given." One line even claimed that June had made no contribution to society and rarely shared a kind word or deed in her life. The so-called tribute also alleged of the late woman, substance were a major love in her life, as June had no hobbies. What's more, the obit's writer stated that June's life should serve as a cautionary tale to others of how not to behave. Apparently alluding to the matriarch's personality and habits, the notice continued, "Addiction and hatred are no es bueno for the living." And the scathing summary of June's 82 years on the planet didn't end there. The obituary then claimed that June's passing had little effect on her loved ones. One cutting extract reads, "We speak for the majority of her family when we say her presence will not be missed by many." But despite the negative portrayal of June in the notice, the writer did make an admission that the deceased would be thought about on occasion. The obituary went on, "Her family will remember June. And among ourselves, we will remember her in our own way, which was mostly sad and troubling times throughout the years." The biting obit continued, "We may have some fond memories of June. And perhaps we will think of those times, too. But we truly believe at the end of the day all of us will really only miss what we never had, a mother, grandmother and great-grandmother. We hope she is finally at peace." Towards the end of the obituary, it's claimed that June's passing away may even have a positive effect on her family. Poignantly, it says, "As for the rest of us left behind, we hope this is the beginning of a time of healing and learning to be a family again." But the tribute also suggested that the matriarch's relatives wouldn't get together in the wake of her demise.